My pleasure. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's great to be here. You look marvelous. And we're honored. My wife, my University of Texas graduate wife. Okay? I thought I'd better establish credibility before I began my talk, okay? Because I sure as hell don't have any credibility with this group yet, okay? It's an honor to be back. The last time we were in San Antonio, we were staying at the Marriott and looking down Commerce, and Tim Duncan and Manu had just won the NBA championship, and so we stood out on the balcony and watched the cars toot their horns for hours. And it was a memorable evening. It was a lovely evening. I got 110 knowledgeable leaders of the manufacturing community in San Antonio in this room tonight. This is not a dinner speech. This is a workshop. Uh-oh. And that implies work, doesn't it? Okay, so let me outline the evening for you. Number one, we're transitioning. We got a huge transition going on in terms of the globalization of the manufacturing space, especially with the tools and techniques that are being used. Those of you that are familiar with artificial intelligence, autonomous robots, 3D printing, additive manufacturing, Internet of Things, et cetera, you know it's coming. You may already are being implemented. I'm going to give you the best I can find in the world in terms of what value is being created from these tools, all right? And you're going to be surprised. And then I'm going to take it to the next level, and I'm going to say, okay, what kind of building blocks do I have to have in place? And I'm going to talk about two building blocks tonight. The first deals with data integrity. And I'm going to introduce the notion that if you're not driving your factory with 4 Sigma data integrity, you're probably not ready for the automated tools that we're going to talk about. 4 Sigma. Yes? Okay? And I'll tell you why, and I'll give you the data behind the recognition that 4 Sigma minimum is where we need to go. The second then talks about the workforce. And how do I prepare the workforce? I've done a lot of work for Intel. I go back all the way to the layout of Fab 7 outside of Albuquerque. At Intel, the number one strategic core process, ladies and gentlemen, is educate, attain, and retain the knowledge worker. And I think that's consistent with the mission of SAMA, the San Antonio Manufacturing Association, okay? Educate, attain, and retain the knowledge worker. And so we're going to talk about that, what goes on. So I'm going to chatter for maybe 30 minutes or so, no more. Well, maybe more. I'm a prof, okay? Maybe more. Then I'm going to put you to work. We're going to hand out a strategic assessment tool asking the leadership of San Antonio manufacturing where you believe your biggest gaps are. And I've been using this tool for over 20 years. But the automation of the tool, I had to team up with my grandson. So what you're going to be using tonight is a QR code database structured assessment methodology built by my grandson. Okay, we're going to hand them out here, but then you're going to call them up on the QR code, and we're going to actually have you fill out the survey. It'll take you 5 minutes, no more, okay? Then we're going to come back and chatter. This is a conversation. This is a workshop. And for those of you that really ask good questions, we've got a perk. Where's the perk? Okay? I think it's a perk. I wrote my last book recently, all right? And we're going to hand them out to the better questions that are asked, okay? Is that okay, ladies and gentlemen? All right? Because you're really smart and you represent a major portion of the GDP of San Antonio. Let's take advantage of the opportunity. You meet once a year, let's take advantage of it. Now, what I will promise you then is your results will be in the hands of Dan and Doug by Monday morning, okay? And what we're going to identify are what you believe are the biggest gaps that we face in San Antonio as it relates to the migration to this Industry 4.0. You ready to go? Ready to go. Ready to go? Okay, so let's press on. My background, 3 lives. I'm a boiler. Thank you. There's one in the room. There's one in the room. We got one in the room. One in the room. One in the room. Okay. There's another one. There's another one in the room. Okay. Okay. And then Doug mentioned after finishing up the doctorate at Purdue, I went in on active duty in the Air Force, tail end of the Vietnam War, April 15th, 1975. And at that time, yeah, you're doing the math, aren't you? Okay. Let's see. 10 years at Purdue, probably graduated from high school when he was 18. 10 years at Purdue, went on active duty, 75. How old is this guy? Cripe. He's 77, okay? That's really old. And I can't retire, okay? So, went on active duty, formed the ICAM program. The ICAM program, Integrated Computer-Aided Manufacturing Program, was dedicated to the migration of industry from Industry 2.0 to Industry 3.0. Remember the VAX? Remember the mini computer? Remember the digital equipment introduction of the ability to do computing and manufacturing? Remember, some of you do, not all of you.
Tandy too, is it?
Some of you do.
Tandy 80. He is our 80.
We learned a lot, didn't we? We learned a lot in that migration from 2.0 to 3.0. Ladies and gentlemen, now we're migrating from 3.0 to 4.0. And there are similar issues that exist. So from there, then I went into industry, ran industrial engineering at Rockwell up in Richardson, went back to International Harvester, vice president, general manager, GCA for a few years, laid out Intel, laid out Motorola, did some work in Emerson Electric, et cetera, et cetera. I'm laying out the Motorola facility in Chandler, Arizona. I stop in to see a friend, Dick Smith, at Arizona State. And Dick says, we're forming a manufacturing research center, cross-functional manufacturing research center here at ASU. You would be perfect to be the director. I'll bet you we could offer you a 50% pay cut. True story, true story. 50% pay cut to come to work and teach here at ASU. So I called Gail, my beloved of 52 years, okay? And I said, you're not going to believe it. I got a job offer today. 50% pay cut. She said, what's the temperature in Phoenix today? I said, it was 75 degrees. What's the temperature in Chicago? 23 below. Take the damn job. And I did. So that's how my academic career began. And I'm still teaching today. I taught last night, sitting in the lobby of the Marriott. I've got a class down in Mexico that I'm still teaching. But that's not the whole story, because that's my life right now. We've got 5 wonderful children, all of whom are married to wonderful people. We got 10 grandchildren. 10. Diaz, Patrick, okay? So we love them dearly. So a question for you to begin the conversation, and this is a dialogue, okay? How is AI impacting your life right now? How many of you interacted with an AI aspect of your life today? How many? You all have. You all have. If you had a Zoom meeting, remember that new application on Zoom down there in the bottom, which is the AI application, which does a magnificent job of have you tried it? It does a magnificent job of synthesizing all the comments that you've talked about in the conversation. It does a better job of documenting the meeting than I do. Amazing what's going on. So if we look at this, the Google search engine that you all use, vehicles, the smart cars, everything's smart today, smart refrigerators. It used to be you could buy a dumb refrigerator for $300, right? Now you got to buy an LG smart refrigerator for $3,000. True. It's smart. It will tell you if you're at the grocery store, the H-E-B, whether or not you need eggs. That's worth $3,000. Apparently it is. Okay? Smart homes, smart everything. So, dumb question, and I'm going to be filled with dumb questions tonight. You think it's going to increase or decrease? Dumb question, right? So what are you doing about it? Where does it fit? Where does it fit? So this is an announcement that was made 2 weeks ago. Did you see this announcement? For those of you that are tennis players, did you see this announcement? After 147 years, they're going to replace the line judges with an AI engine. Wimbledon is going to replace the line judge. Think of the cultural change that's going to happen next year. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a big deal. And for those of you that follow Wimbledon, play tennis, you know what I mean, right? That's a big deal. So how good is it? How good is it? Our son-in-law is an anesthesiologist. He writes questions for the board. Josh says the following: I've probably done 5,000, 10,000 procedures. I'm as good as it gets. I anticipate within 3 to 5 years that I'm going to be replaced by an AI engine. And then the PA or the nurse practitioner is going to be performing the process, and I'm going to be monitoring 3 or 4 of these procedures, not just one at a time. How good is it? AI has a much better rate of identifying skin cancer than a human. Hallelujah. AI has a much better identification of brain tumors, and it can even help in predicting when you're going to die and preclude some of that from happening. Hallelujah. That's the good side of AI. Can you see that picture? Okay? And you know exactly what's going on there, don't you? You think those two buds ever walked down the walkway and in their winter parkas and had the hand on hand and just snuggled together? Do you think that ever happened, ladies and gentlemen? And so our grandson, who's a sophomore now at Stanford studying artificial intelligence, I told Joshua, and you're going to interact with Joshua here later tonight, I told Joshua, I will support your program at Stanford if you understand the ethical side of artificial intelligence. And the ethical side of artificial intelligence, ladies and gentlemen, is scary. It's scary. You know what I mean. You've seen it in the political ads. You've seen it in all sorts of other activities that go on. We have a huge opportunity to improve our world using these tools that are coming about with Industry 4.0. On the other hand, if we don't monitor, if we don't do it well, we're going to struggle, okay? So that sets the stage, doesn't it? That sets the stage. My assumption is the following. You're brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Please say yes. Yes, okay. And you understand the ethical aspects of it. So how are we doing? How are we doing? This comes out of Sloan Management Review, Boston Consulting Group, BCG. I'm happy to provide any or all of these references. I've made available my presentation to Dan. Dan's got copies of this material, okay? If you want copies of it, feel free to just send him a note. If you want references, I've got all the references that you can read as well. Sloan says, 7 out of 10 companies surveyed report minimal or no impact from AI so far. 7 out of 10. And interestingly enough, if they're making some investment in AR, fewer than 2 out of 5 report real business values being created. If they're making substantial investments in AI, 3 out of 5 are finding value. I gave this talk to the Honeywell Artificial Intelligence audience about 8 months ago in Phoenix. I had an audience, I had people in Cairo, I had people in Europe, I had people in Bangladesh. I had about 300 people virtually together. This is the AI bunch at Honeywell. They're the techies. They're brilliant technocrats. But until we start folding over the business aspects and creating value from AI, we've got some work to do. And you, as the leaders of your organization, need to have this fully under control. What do you need? Ribeiro says you need the following: quality of data, big push, quality of data. A friend of mine, Roger Willis, we went to school together, says the following: automating a mess is still a mess. And for those of you that ever have tried to employ an ERP system with less than 4 sigma data accuracy, know exactly what I just said. Automating a mess is still a mess. We got to focus on AI cases. We need to understand what works. Where do we create value? We need to create the teams of individuals. And there's a new job description that I would like to introduce tonight called data scientist, okay? And I'm going to come back and revisit that in just a moment, because I think all of you need to begin to think about who within your organization is going to become the solid data scientist that's going to get us into this world successfully and create the value, all right? Impact on people, I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about Gail, who works in your office. I'm going to talk about Dan, who works on your factory floor. And you're going to replace me, and you're going to replace her. And how are you going to do that successfully? And then finally, we need to focus on you and your understanding, deep understanding of what it really is, okay? So let's talk about that data scientist. Do I form an organizational element of data scientists? My recommendation is no. You don't need another standalone group of simply data scientists. You need the mechanical engineers / data scientists. You need the industrial engineer / data scientist. You need to develop within your cadre of professionals that you have the ability to understand how to achieve good data. And we're going to talk about good data in just a moment. Make sense? Is that okay? Yes. Now, how many of you have identified the data scientist as part of your organization so far? Uno, dos, tres, cuatro. Okay? I got 96 to go. And we'll get there. We'll get there. I think it's prudent. And we'll get there, okay? So let's put it in perspective. Industry 1.0, first generation, basic production, mechanical production, railroads, steam power. Then we came up with mass production, didn't we? About 1870 came along. The computer came out, third generation, 1969. Automated production. We can use the computer now to drive manufacturing. Fourth generation, AI, big data, et cetera, et cetera. Second generation, let me give you an example. I grew up in northwestern Indiana. Up the hill, when I was growing up, was a machine shop. I would walk up the hill and I would mill parts, okay? I had a Bridgeport. You know what a Bridgeport is, right? I would mill parts, okay? I would do the speed, feed, depth of cut by turning the dials. I would listen to the chatter. I would monitor the cutting fluid. I was in control. That's 2.0. 3.0 says the following. Now, when I went to Purdue, I learned how to program it, okay? And I had the ability now to offset my job by programming it and downloading the program to produce the product. 3.0. What's 4.0? 4.0 says, I'm going to take a solid model of that product that I need to produce. I'm going to introduce it to an AI engine. I may not do the milling on it. I may do 3D printing of it instead. That's 4.0. Now, I entered 1975. April 15th, walked on active duty U.S. Air Force ManTech program. At that time, we were struggling in the aerospace industry because everybody had a different CAD system. It was brand new. We had different CAM systems on the factory floor. Nothing talked to one another. My job was to spend $100 million of U.S. taxpayer money over 10 years and put a roadmap together to integrate the aerospace industry. And we did that. And we've made significant progress accordingly. Your job. So my job was to get industry from 2.0 to 3.0. Not trivial. Required a lot of work by a lot of people, a lot of smart people. Your job is to move us from 3.0 to 4.0. I'm walking away, okay? Estoy viejo. Soy viejo. See? Patrick, see? Soy viejo. Okay? And you're going to have to figure out, how are we going to do this smartly? How are we going to do it cost effectively? You saw the original numbers, didn't you? We're not getting a lot of value from AI yet, even though we're investing heavily in it. Honeywell had 300 people at this conference. So my bottom line, talking about value from AI, is the following. Number one, you better get your act together from a data integrity standpoint. 4 sigma minimum to drive decision making in the office. 5 or 6 sigma on the floor. Formally address workforce implications. What's the impact going to be on your workforce? Do you have the talent that you need, or do you need to educate, attain, and retain the knowledge worker? That, ladies and gentlemen, is the #1 core process at Intel. You would think at Intel, their #1 core process would be to design the next generation chip, wouldn't you? It is not. It is not. Their #1 core process is to educate, attain, and retain the knowledge worker. We got to figure out then the return on investment, the risk. Is the workforce prepared to do this? Is the workforce prepared? Are they willing to accept it? Do they understand the implications of it? Does leadership understand the implications of it? Et cetera, et cetera. So let me give you a Costco example. These are Costco glasses. I just dropped a hearing aid, so I won't step too far. It's only $1,000, okay? Costco in San Diego makes glasses, okay? Costco in San Diego makes glasses. And those glasses are held by a fixture that was being outsourced by Costco to a supplier that was producing the fixture, okay? The interesting thing about that is they were paying hundreds and hundreds of dollars. I got 6 people looking for a hearing aid, okay? Don't worry about it. If I step on it, we'll get a replacement, okay? Okay? We'll find it, okay? So they were spending a fortune on these fixtures. So the plant manager at Costco in San Diego said the following: I just attended a 3D printing machine show, and I think there's a merit in this additive manufacturing. Let's bring 3 or 4 of those machines in, put them in a conference room, and let our engineers play with it. The key term is play with it. Have enough time to learn what they could do, okay? Have enough time to play with it, all right? And so what they did is they bought 3 or 4 of these machines.
Right there.
Wait a minute, we got it.
We got it. Now you can hear it.
I now have the audience back. They bought 3 or 4 of these additive manufacturing machines. They put them in a conference room and they said, go play. And what they figured out was by additive manufacturing, they could spray up these fixtures for tens of dollars rather than hundreds of dollars being spent outside the shop. And everybody was happy. And they could control their own destiny, and they had a 10x payback. Big deal. What was the secret that you just heard? Let them play. Let them play. Let them understand what could be, all right? What could be. We need to make some investment here. We give our grandchildren a 3D printer when they turn 12 or 13. Why? Why in the world would we as grandparents spend a couple $100 on a grandchild to give them a 3D printer when they're 12 or 13? Because that's the world that they're going to live in. And if I were you, and I'm not, and I wish I were, but if I were you, I would think about what kind of tools and techniques are we thinking about next? And how can I put some conference room pilot plans together to let some folks play, learn what's capable, learn what could be, all right? So I'm going to talk about two topics and then get off the stage. Number one, data integrity. Everybody says that if I'm going to be successful in any of these advanced techniques, I've got to have the data integrity to drive the decision-making process. So I'm working with a Coca-Cola bottler in Tijuana. I do a lot of work in Mexico. Coca-Cola bottler. All they do is bring in the formula stuff, mix it up with some good water, not Tijuana water, okay? Bottle it, store it in the warehouse, and then distribute it to the Oxos and others. You know what I mean, right? And they were struggling by implementing another SAP ERP module. And so I asked them, what's your warehouse data integrity? Piece part count by location, by shelf life, not the financials that you folks mooge around, okay? The financials are of zero value when it comes to Industry 4.0. Piece part count by location, by shelf life. And they said, we don't know. So the next time I came to visit, I said, what's your 1.5 sigma? What's 1.5 sigma, folks? 1.5 sigma says the following. I'm going to go back, okay? 50% of the time, when I go out to the warehouse, the part's where it's supposed to be. What is your data warehouse sigma level? How are we going to automate the process if we don't have the right data? So let's talk about data integrity very briefly, okay? And I thought I'd call upon a data integrity expert to begin the process, okay? So POP, you know POP, right? You know POP? Okay? And I know they're playing the Mavericks, and I know you folks have your cell phones out and you're watching the game underneath the table. That's okay. Just don't yell too loud if they make a good shot, and don't yell too loud if they get nailed by a bad call. Pop said the following. I look at analytics, some of which is very worthwhile, some of which is superfluous poppycock. You know Pop. That's what he would say, wouldn't he? It's a great quotation. Some of it's worthwhile, some of it is superfluous poppycock. Now, what is he talking about? What he says is the following. Let's go to McDonald's. After that meal, I'm going to introduce McDonald's, okay? We're going to buy a Big Mac, 2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun, no onions. No onions. You know why, right? No onions, E. coli. No onions. I got 10 items if I buy it with a Coke and a fry. Now, I got 1 sigma accuracy at my McDonald's, 30% accuracy at McDonald's. What's the chance that I get a good meal? 0.000006, which might be about right. I'll come back to that because we have a better example of that, okay? What happens if I get to 3 sigma, 93% accuracy? Now, 0.93 to the 10th power says that half the time the order's going to be good. Half the time. That, ladies and gentlemen, is 3 sigma. That's 93% accurate for every component that you put together. Would you say 50% accuracy of having a meal delivered to you is acceptable, young lady? No. Absolutely not. Now let's go to 4 sigma. Now it gets tricky. 4 sigma, 99.4%, says 1 meal out of 20 is going to be bad. Okay? Now I got to make a decision, don't I? Because as we go to 5 sigma and 6 sigma, the cost of that data quality goes up exponentially, doesn't it? And so I've got to make a business decision now, don't I? Is it worthwhile for me to live with 4 sigma accuracy and have 1 order out of 20 bad? And that's the job that you've got to wrestle with. That's what I mean by artificial intelligence, data integrity, return on investment. That's the job that you're going to have to tackle, okay? Where is it on the bottom line? So let's go to my warehouse in Tijuana. The forklift truck driver was told that in module 3A, there was a Coke Zero pallet. Forklift truck driver goes out to pallet 3A and doesn't find it in 3A. So what does the forklift truck driver do? Well, she or he could return to the office and say it wasn't where it was supposed to be. And what would happen? All hell would break loose, wouldn't it? What do you mean you didn't bring back the pallet you were supposed to bring back? However, there's a pallet of Coke Zero over here in 3C. Well, let's just go swipe that one, right? Let's go swipe that one. Then I can return with a full load of Coke Zero, and I've done my job, haven't I? And from a data integrity standpoint, ladies and gentlemen, I have just compounded the problem, haven't I? Right? Got it? You see the issue. So Tom Caparello and I were asked a simple question by Intel 15 years ago. We're installing SAP. SAP is a Goliath, especially for a company called Intel. We're spending $1 billion over 10 years to lay in an ERP system. The question we were asked is, Dan, Tom, what level of data integrity should we have that's the most cost-effective data integrity to make our decision-making using SAP effective? Well, you know, 6 sigma sounds right, doesn't it? 99.9997% accuracy, right? 6 sigma sounds right. That's what Michael Harry did. I've traveled the world with Michael. The world loves Michael Harry and 6 sigma. But when you start drawing the bathtub curve, what happens is the following. The cost, the total cost, goes up exponentially as you go to 5 sigma and 6 sigma. Follow my chart? Now, ladies and gentlemen, that took us a year to figure out. That chart is not trivial. You know what's behind that chart, don't you? And for Intel, that's a big deal. 4 sigma in decision-making processes, dealing with the office. Now, on the floor, I got to have better accuracy. I know. I've run the floor, okay? But in the office, when I'm dealing with scheduling and et cetera, I can live with 99.4%, okay? 4 sigma. What's your accuracy? What's your accuracy? And I'm giving you homework, aren't I? I'm a prof. I've been it for 40 years. I'm giving you homework, okay? So, second topic, workforce implications. You think the people are going to be impacted by this? No, absolutely. What are the implications? Well, Gartner said, and this is quite a while ago, 2019, I don't think it's changed much, 9% of organizations agree they're prepared for this migration for the future of work. 1 out of 10. Half of them lack the skills to drive the future performance. A third of them have an inadequate talent base to drive the digital transformation. Ask yourself, and I don't need an answer, ask yourself, do you have the talent to drive the digital transformation that you see for your industry? I don't care whether I'm making cardboard boxes or precision machine mill parts, okay? And I have to understand what that means from a talent standpoint. Now, there are 5 keys. 1, put your people first. This is an AME, Association of Manufacturing Excellence. Doug and I are both actively involved in Association of Manufacturing Excellence. And if you've ever seen the video, People-Centric Leadership, I think you can appreciate what we're talking about.
It's up on YouTube.
put your people first. It's on YouTube, people-centric leadership, okay? Number 2, focus on the soft skills, not the hard skills. I'm going to show you the data that we've collected from our companies in Mexico. I do a lot in Mexico. Number 3, drive change from the top. It's got to come from you. Make sure you're acting on the translation of data to information to knowledge in an effective manner and make it work, okay? And if you can't fail fast, succeed slowly. Now, what in the world does that mean? It means try stuff new, try new stuff, okay? Design experiments, and for those of you that have had designed experiments, you know all you can do is negate the null hypothesis, remember? So let's learn from the experimentation that we're putting together. Let's design experiments. Let's try things out. And let's then embrace failure. The developer of the incandescent light bulb was asked one time, aren't you frustrated that it took 100 light bulbs to come up with one that worked? And he said, no. I had 99 learning opportunities before I got to the good one, okay? So what do you need? You need the hard skills. And the hard skills for each of your companies is going to be different. If I'm making cardboard boxes, I'm going to need different skills than if I'm making aerospace parts, if I'm making different skills than if I'm making leather goods or aerospace or whatever. I need different hard skills. But what we're finding is the soft skills are dominant. This comes from a publication of the World Economic Forum. It is, in essence, the Bible, if you will, to prepare your workforce for the 21st century world that you're going to live in. And again, I've got wonderful people taking pictures. I'll send you the report, okay? Just send Dan what you'd like to have, okay? Thank you for doing that. You're a wonderful person, okay? Okay? You're a wonderful person. But I'm happy to provide you. I'm not keeping anything back tonight, okay? So we did a survey, sample size of 42 companies in northern Mexico. And we asked them, what aren't you getting from the engineers that you'd really like to have? Number 1 gap, able to make change happen. We in academia, and so I've changed my courses, okay? We in academia were not preparing the students to lead the change, make change happen. That's tough, isn't it? That's tough, okay? That's published. We published that article. So, what do you need? I talked about this. This is Intel. Educate. Find the source of talent. Some of you are training your own. Some of you are training your own. Hallelujah. Others are looking for sources of talent. First, you got to find the sources of talent. Then you have to figure out what would attract them to our organization. How do we attain the talent that we need? And then third, how do we keep them? How do we retain the talent that we have? Educate, attain, and retain is the number 1 strategic core process at Intel, okay? Not the design of the 2 nano or 3 nano chip. Educate, attain, and retain the knowledge work. So let's put all that together. Let's put it all together. 2 views, industry view, organizational view. Industry view says the following. This comes from Hitachi. The concept of digitizing everything is becoming a reality. Scary. I can't keep up. Scary. Our challenge becomes moving to the next phase, changing how we think, how we train, and how we work using data. The new reality then says the following. This is a lovely Price Waterhouse white paper. Lack of digital culture and training is the number 1 challenge for Industry 4.0. It's not the technology, it's not the tools, it's preparing the workforce to embrace this concept, okay? And bottom line, let me go back. Any transition to Industry 4.0 without preparing the workforce will fail. They're going to figure out how to make it fail, okay? So, I did a survey, the same survey we're going to do tonight with you. On a Tuesday, we were in San Diego, primarily in the biotech world, and I asked them, are you prepared to transition to Industry 4.0? And identified the biggest gaps coming out of San Diego. The next day, we went across the border into Tijuana, and I had 35 companies represented in Tijuana. Same questionnaire. You're going to do it here in a minute, okay? And we're going to find out what you think in San Antonio are your biggest gaps that SAMA can then put on the program this coming year. Got it? So how do I transition? We call it people-centric leadership. The transformation. How are you going to introduce it? How will the workforce react? What's your master plan of impacting the workforce as we transition to this data-driven digital transformation world? So let me introduce my bride, my UT bride, okay? She works in your office. She works in your office. She's the scheduler. She's good. She's really good. She's been with you for 10 years. She knows everything about the business. She knows what's going on. She has the ability to react to changing customer demands. And you hear about this thing called artificial intelligence. And you say, I think we can replace Gail with an AI scheduling engine. And she's going to get up and leave. Actually, she's handing out the worksheet. Dan works on the factory floor. I am a dedicated employee. I get there early. I have produced the best product that you've ever seen. But you think that we can automate the process by replacing Dan with a robot. Now, how are you going to do that? How are you going to do it? Got the question? It is not trivial, and it will either make or break your implementation of Industry 4.0. So what do the affected individuals want to know? I went to Pat Zagarmi. Pat Zagarmi is the best in the world that I know in terms of making change happen. Pat said there are 6 things that you've got to do as the leader of your organization to make change happen. Number 1, there are information concerns. What are we doing? Tell them what you're doing. I do that in a 1-pager. Number 2, what does it mean? WIFM. You've heard of WIFM. What's in it for me? What impact is it going to have on me? Number 3, if we implement it, is it going to work? If we implement it, is it going to work? And finally, does it make any difference? If we implement it, are we going to get a return? Is it going to help the business? Is it going to help me? After we get those 4 under control, then we're going to collaborate and we're going to refine. Pat's comment leads to this conclusion. Those who plan the battle seldom battle the plan. Have you heard that before? Write that down. That's a great quote. Those who plan the battle seldom battle the plan, okay? Make sense? So, if I think there's an opportunity, I can't tell them what needs to be done. I've got to have them own it. And that's the juxtaposition in today's world, going from the manager role to the leader role. And that's what we call people-centric leadership. So there are some actionable steps, and I'm going to close it out with these. How do you organize? How do you lead? How do you create a learning organization? And then finally, how do you create an environment where failure of the experiment is acceptable? I'm going to go through these 4, and then I'm going to put you to work, okay? Number 1, this comes directly out of people-centric leadership. The traditional hierarchical organization of today looks like the following. I'm going to have mission and vision and values as the foundation. Yes, right thing. And then I'm going to walk up here and say, then we're going to say, okay, next year, our master plan says that we're going to sell this much material, this much equipment, and we're going to make this much money. In order to do that, then, we've got to figure out, okay, who's our customers and what are we going to sell them, which means then we have to figure out what our employees have to do that. I'm going to flip that pyramid around. And I'm going to ask you to think about the implications of the following. What would happen if, instead, we looked at this pyramid a little bit differently, looked at the organization a bit differently, okay? Mission, vision, values, and purpose, still the solid foundation. You all have it. Mission, vision, value. Then you get executive alignment at the executive level. But then the third ring is employee experience. Do they want to come to work? Do they understand the role of the employee in doing this? Charles Savage, an old friend of mine, wrote a book called Fifth Generation Management. Charles said the following: if I can make work fun, I can double productivity. I love going to school. I love teaching students. Hell, I'm old. Viejo. See? Viejo. But I taught class last night. Why? Because I love teaching school. And that's what Savage is talking about. So once we get the employee experience, then that's going to ripple effect in terms of the customer experience, isn't it? Where are your touch points? Where are your touch points between your organization and the customer? And then finally, revenue and profit. Revenue and profit, ladies and gentlemen, is a dependent variable. It's a dependent variable. And we have to work on that, okay? So the employee experience determines that customer experience, and I have an example that we'll talk about later. Jeff Liker, for those of you from Toyota, and for those of the rest of you who've read the Toyota Way, probably recognize this charter, okay? Jeff said the following: within Toyota there are 4 principles, 4 sections of how we do work. The foundation is philosophy, long-term thinking. Then the process, focus on the process, eliminate the waste. Earn the right to eliminate the waste. Then people and partners, and finally a solid RD, DMAIC, SI, strategic problem-solving approach. That's what you're going to get out of the book. That's Michael Harry's extended problem-solving definition methodology that I've taken and captured in the book. The learning organization. This is Sengi. This goes back a long way. Understand how to make change happen. The cure could be worse than the disease. The learning organization has 4 characteristics, ladies and gentlemen. Number 1, curiosity. Keep asking questions. Number 2, forgiveness. We know that things aren't always going to work. Don't chastise. Number 3, trust. And number 4, togetherness. Okay. Finally, we have to drive out fear. You know this guy, right? And you've read his 14 points, out of crisis, his 14 points. If you remember point number 8 said, drive out fear. If there is fear in the organization that if I raise my hand or if I pull the cord and stop the line, I'm going to get yelled at, okay? I can't have that happen. So, closing exercise. Here's what I'd like to do. Okay? IBM says we need to train 100 million American workers to be trained over the next 4 years. How are we going to do that? We're going to have to understand how to put that master plan together. And so what we've come up with is a strategic assessment methodology. I'm going to ask you for 5 more minutes of your time, okay? And in that 5 more minutes, I'm going to ask you to pull out your cell phone, and we're going to do a QR data collection from the members of SAMA this evening. And we're going to then rank order what those issues are that you prioritize, okay? So on this chart that I'm going to show you on your cell phone here in a moment, you're going to have questions, okay? So of those questions, let me go back. There, okay? This is the first question that you're going to be asked. The business implications of Industry 4.0 are well understood. That's the first question you're going to be asked, okay? On a scale of 1 to 5, where 1 says, we don't have a clue, and on 5 says we're world class, give it a grade from 1 to 5, Likert scale, okay? Then the second question you're going to be asked is, okay, if we look out there 18 to 24 months, what should it be? Again, on a scale of 1 to 5. And finally, if there's a difference between where we are today and where we need to be, what would be the value if we close that gap? Got it? And then all I'm going to do is take desired minus current, multiply it by value, and plot it for Dan and Doug. Exercise clear? Okay, so would you please pull out your cell phone and go to work? It should take you maybe 5 minutes. I hope it comes up. You got it? Muy bueno. When you're done, would you raise your hand, and when most of you are done, we'll close out the session. Sorry?
Here, Dan.
For clarification, when we answer these questions, is it for us individually,
I think
for our organization, or for what we believe is?
and I wrestled with that. I think it needs to represent, all this is totally anonymous, okay? So the focus, I think, needs to be on your organization.
Our
Because you know
organization.
best, okay? And
we
then
see
we'll
is our
synthesize all
organization.
that, okay?
It's anonymous.
Got
I
it.
don't want you to extrapolate and guess what the others, you think the others need. It needs to be your organization. Does that make sense, sir?
Yes.
Okay. Go to work. Thanks.
It's anonymous, so tell them it's being grouped together and it's anonymous.
No.
Okay.
You need me to change it?
Pardon me?
You need me to change it to the live?
Pardon me? I need a bot. Yeah. How you doing? Done? Oh, okay. Easy or hard? Representative or not? What we're going to do is synthesize those results, totally anonymous, 80 or 90 or 100 data points that we just collected, Paretoize the distribution, and send it to Dan and Doug on Monday what your results are from this audience, okay? So, while the people are finishing up, I don't want to keep you any longer. What did you hear? What are your takeaways? What are your questions of me or anyone else in here? I've already given away one book who asked a great question, okay? Are there other questions? Yes, sir.
How long is it going to take us to get our data sorted out?
I'm going to have to come back to you because my hearing is gone, okay? Come on.
So the biggest issue I see out of tonight's selection, we don't have the data to support 401. What is it going to take for us to get there?
What's it going to take to be competitive worldwide?
No, what is it going to take us to get our data sorted out so we can implement 4.0?
Okay, so how do you get your data sorted out to make this actually do something? How do you get that to that data integrity? The first thing you have to do is you're going to have to do some value stream mapping and understand the data sources and the data sinks. And I'll send you various methodologies. If you send a note to Dan, I'll send you various methodologies of doing that, okay? There are lots of good models to choose from. I can use a CPOC model, I can use an IDEF model. There are various ways of doing that, okay? If you would kindly send a note to Dan, he will forward it to me and I'll shoot it back to you, okay? Okay? Other questions? Come on.
Very curious, you mentioned Intel several times.
Yep.
There are three values. However, and I know cause and effect are not closely related in time.
Yep.
However, they have a less than 1% return on equity today.
Right.
What are they doing wrong?
They lost the formula for migrating to 2 and 3 nano. Right now, Samsung and TSMC's eating their lunch, okay? They got hung up, they got stuck on the 4 nano, 5 nano, 6 nano, 10 nano world, okay? They got the installed base. We've got about fab 12, 22, 32, 42, 52, and 62 next to us, 7 miles from our house, okay? And they've got that installed base, and they lost the formula of getting to 2 nano and 3 nano. That's the reason why. Now, will they be able to come back? I don't know.
Where does NVIDIA?
NVIDIA is off the charts in terms of making things happen, okay? And they're a brilliant, innovative organizational model that I think if I were you, I would look into how is NVIDIA really motivating its workforce to get there, okay? You've got Samsung coming into Austin. We've got TSMC coming into Northwest Phoenix, okay? We got to watch them close. Right now, they're on point. Intel's sucking wind. You're absolutely right. But I still use that example because it's still the foundation for what I'm hoping the point to get across.
I felt that they were adverse to taking risk.
Really not, because they're investing beaucoup billions, okay, in 52 and 62. They're investing $10 billion in each of them. Are they averse to taking risks? Well, maybe they are less risky than Samsung and TSMC. But if you look at the semiconductor industry, they're still pushing the envelope. Great assessment. You deserve a book.
Well, because I mean, SpaceX is another great example
Agree.
of how they get people to achieve excellence.
Yep. Good points, okay? Who else? Others? Come on, yes, sir. I got to come to you.
How do you prevent that data from being shared with the outside community if you don't want it to be shared?
Repeat, please.
If you're going to use artificial intelligence to gather data
Yeah.
on your processes, how do you prevent it from being shared with the outside community?
Okay, so how do you protect the data and keep it from being shared from the outside? The intellectual property protection raises its ugly head, doesn't it? Okay? All right, so this is not meant to be a curt answer, okay? If I don't collect the data, who am I keeping it a secret from, right? That's the flip side of what you just asked. So I'm going to have to trust that the operators that are collecting the data, the managers who are analyzing the data, the directors and whomever you have the integrity to maintain the quality of that data source. If they don't, then we need to implement certain other parameters and other methodologies to do that protection. Your point is well made in terms of, but if I'm not collecting it, I don't have any way of running my business tomorrow, okay? You see the yin and the yang that I'm getting to here? So I have to understand, do I collect it and worry about others taking it forward? Probably. But the flip side is if I don't collect it, I'm in deep yogurt. Make sense?
So are you saying that you're open up,
You're not opening your kimono. You still have protective methodologies. You still have protection. Okay, okay? You're still going to have protective methodologies in place. No question about it, all right? But the challenge is, what happens if you don't collect it? That's the point I'm trying to make. Correct.
we all have data, we don't want to put it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Good point, good point, okay?
What's the governance on all of it, though?
Come on,
What's the governance on all of it?
I'm sorry.
All that data and
Speak
AI
up.
and programming, what's the governance on all of it?
The governance turns out to be one of the big issues that we have. We have to have the governance in place.
In the case of healthcare, where we're using AI and we're denying healthcare because of pre-programmed AI.
Yeah.
So where's the governance in all of that?
The challenge that we have right now is that governance model is not really clear. It's not clear.
Across so many industries, how do you really regulate, like,
Repeat?
across so many industries, how do you really regulate that governance?
I don't know whether you can do it across industries. I think you're going to have to look at it by industry sector. Okay? So the aerospace industry, AIA, for example, is looking at the governance model in terms of how you're going to protect the aerospace industry data plan as it puts together. The EIA, Electronics Industry Association, is looking at it from a standpoint of the electronics industry. Get in touch with them, okay? NAM is working on it from a national manufacturing perspective. Doug is aware of that, okay? I think it would be prudent for this group to sit down with all the interest in intellectual property. Maybe it would be worthwhile to program something for SAMA dealing with this notion that you've brought up. Governance, data integrity. Maybe that's a high priority gap that you've identified.
Good topic next year.
Good topic. And I think you're right on to something, okay? What else? Oh, pardon me.
Question.
Yes, sir.
What industry sector is doing the best job with this?
What industry sector is doing the best job with this? I'm going to go outside manufacturing. I'm going to say medical, okay? The medical industry has figured out that they cannot afford to spend $600,000 a year for an anesthesiologist. So they are desperately in need of figuring out alternative ways and alternative business models. And that what I mentioned to you, our son-in-law, the anesthesiologist, understands that that industry sector is going to fundamentally change. And so as they migrate to this AI foundation of making decisions and then replacing the anesthesiologist with the nurse practitioner and PA, I think that's the model that I would look at. Okay? Make sense? Question? Yes, sir.
This is more a question of curiosity. From the outside, Elon Musk doesn't seem like a people-centric leader,
Yes.
but he gets results. Is there any secret to that?
Repeat, please.
Elon Musk doesn't seem like a people-centric leader, but he gets results. What is your opinion?
Watch what Tesla does over the next 10 years.
Okay.
Watch what Tesla does, okay? Watch what they do.
What is your opinion?
I think they're going to stumble.
What about SpaceX?
They're going to stumble. I think it's going to stumble, okay? I think it's going to stumble. One more. We got one more? Come on. Yes, sir, please.
Where do you think you should start? What aspect of a business should it be in? Sales, shop floor?
Okay. So the question is, where do I start, right? And my answer is not meant to be trite. Anywhere. Okay? I got to start growing grassroots. Where do I get the data integrity? It could be in the manufacturing floor. It could be in sales, but sales is highly probabilistic, okay? There's a real struggle. Now, we've got some work going on in terms of AI and sales that you might find of interest, okay? Warehousing. The simplest one that I've found to start with is in terms of inventory management, okay? Start there. Demonstrate that you can hit 4 sigma, you can hit 5 sigma in terms of warehousing, and then all of a sudden the ball starts to roll. And that one's pretty straightforward. Good question. One more?
We got time for 2 more.
2 more.
I'm running out of books.
Come on.
Back at Pearl Harbor, the military came to one of our local contractors, Zachary Corporation, and they realized they needed to train aviators,
Yeah.
and specifically navigators.
Yep.
And they said we need an airfield to do that. And just west of here in Hondo, Zachary Corporation built runways, taxiways, and over 600 buildings in 89 days.
Right.
So,
Amazing.
You know, we look at this and we say, you know, we're trying to lean on technology, but at the end of the day, you know, the human element, collaboration, seems like it's so much more powerful.
It is.
And you know, even with slide rulers and just get after it.
I grew up with a slide rule. You're a man after my own heart, okay?
So, you know, we're hearing, you know, there's all this hype on AI.
Yeah.
And now it's fallen off.
And why are we not getting the value from it?
Yeah, so that's
Okay?
my question.
So my answer is a basketball analogy. I grew up in Indiana. We only do 3 things in Indiana. You know what they are? Play basketball, play basketball, and play basketball. And my coach said the following: you give me 5 players playing as a team and I'll beat 5 superstars 7 games out of 10. Okay? And I remember that to today. I'm not going to beat them all the time, but I'm going to beat them 7 games out of 10 playing as a team, okay? And that collaborative notion that I tried to get across, the willingness to develop trust and collaboration across the organizational boundaries, understanding, trusting people, understanding, looking at them not just as an employee, but looking at them as the whole person. That's this whole notion of people-centric leadership that we're trying to get across from AME, okay?
And what I'll do is I'll pull down the link, I'll share it with Dan, and we'll get it out so everybody can take a look at that AME video.
About superstars and players, you're asking your players to understand like a superstar.
Yes. Yes. And you're asking,
You're not only a pessimist, but like,
correct. And so,
only 5% of us are
and so the intriguing thing,
what 95% of us don't.
the intriguing thing, continuing the basketball analogy, is we, Phoenix, invested heavily in some superstars last year. We hardly made the playoffs, okay? Hardly made the playoffs. There was a better team, lots of better teams out there. I don't know who's winning tonight. Somebody can tell you later, okay? One more question. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so my question is that AI, you know, right now it's large language models, right? There's certain companies, certain industries that are investing millions and billions of dollars in the tech.
Right. Honeywell, for example.
I'm $1 million a year company. I'm not gonna be
No.
innovating it, developing the large language
No,
models.
no.
For a lot of businesses in the United States, as this technology progresses, we're likely going to be incorporating it in the ways that others have made it available for us to incorporate.
Correct.
Right? So my question is when do we start incorporating it? Where do we start incorporating it?
Yeah.
My manufacturing right now is like 2nd generation / 3rd generation. I'm nowhere near 3rd generation going to 4th generation. My industry may never be doing that. If I could achieve that, that would be miraculous. But given certain market constraints, raw material costs, supply chain, all these other factors, it may not even be value in doing that.
Agreed.
Cost-wise,
Agreed.
right?
Agreed.
So, my question is back to, when do I incorporate, where do I incorporate?
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to me sitting here right now that where for me to incorporate this is in the actual manufacturing process.
No, but you can get started. Okay, that's the point I tried to make.
Okay,
Don't start thinking about automation. It's the last thing you do. First you simplify, then you integrate, then you automate. But think about the data integrity. Think about, how can I get 4 Sigma in my office? How can I get this in my second generation machine tools? We still have to have the data integrity to drive that effectively. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I'm not saying invest $1 million on $1 million company to invest. That would be dumb. I've run businesses before, okay?
No,
But you got to have the basics in place. And then somebody's going to come along with a really slick algorithm, okay? In Canada, I just did the data collection that you just did, folks. In Canada, we just used that in 145 small businesses. A dozen of these SATs. You did one tonight. We did a dozen for 145 companies. In Canada, they spent $2 million for the data collection algorithm. I'm a cheap Hoosier. I paid my grandson $10,000 to build what you just used tonight, okay? Can I get low-cost applications like you just did to get the real-time data collection? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, follow me? There is a cost benefit, that AI ROI, and you're going to have a different model than Honeywell. You're going to have a different, Honeywell had 300 people working just AI.
Yeah.
And they had this global workshop that I attended, okay? You've got maybe half a person thinking about it, and that's okay.
Me.
You, yeah.
Yeah.
And the other half person working on the business, and another half person working on sales, and exactly. Follow me?
Yeah.
But you got to be prudent about it. This notion of the foundation, and that's why I brought it up. Prepare the data integrity, prepare the workforce, and then when you see an opportunity, now take advantage of it.
To incorporate some AI.
Correct. Right. To incorporate, when it makes business sense. AI, ROI.
And we're not just talking about manufacturing, we're talking about business processes that
All-
make businesses run.
all the above.
Accounting, you know,
I'm
marketing.
gonna replace Gail, remember? I'm replacing Gail. She's in the office. She does scheduling. Yeah. Okay? And maybe she'll sleep with me tonight. We'll see. Okay? After 52 years, we've had a few discussions. Okay? Okay?
I think this has been very thought-provoking.
Thought-provoking.
And I think that's what this is all about, and I appreciate that. And I think all of us need to look for threads of opportunities to implement. The world's changing. That's the message.
That's a given.
And for perspective, I have one patent that's been issued for Industry 4.0 and another patent pending. So I embrace it.
Yeah.
Optimistically caution.
Agreed. Agreed.
About
We're not getting the value, my opening chart, sir.
Yeah.
We're not getting the value that we hope for.
Like Chad said, you know, what Zachary did, let's not lose perspective of that, because that's the real world. It's about people getting together and applying themselves on the mission.
Yep.
And our whole societies, we've got a lot of broken pieces, to be honest.
Yeah.
And our workforce, and I don't want to go off, that's a whole nother session.
Yeah.
We've got issues.
We can all talk about that.
We've got issues. But thank you for your presentation.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That was fun. That was a workshop.